All right, you guys. Well, good morning, and thank you, everybody, for getting on the call on time. It is exactly 9 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started with the call. And as you know, this has been such a journey. At least it has been a journey for me to be able to be on these calls with you guys since, gosh, over a year now. And before we get started, I just want to go ahead and let everybody know that, this has been a call that we've been doing for a while, and what we're currently doing now in this month of October is taking the book of Think and Grow Rich. And at the end of the call, I'm going to open up the lines, and I want to hear how things are going with you guys. We all took on this challenge about really, digging into manifesting what it is that we're desiring, every single morning and every single night. So what we're doing on these calls is we're, going through the 13 principles of this book. Now, as we had mentioned in our first week's call, or was it last week, I can't remember, is that this is really not a book. This is more of a workbook. So this is not something you want to just read in the background or listen to in the background. It's really something you want to take on and you want to take notes. You want to make sure that when you have, whether it's the book or the audible, you're actually participating in the book, with the book. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and continue on these 13 principles from Think and Grow Rich. But what I thought I would do is not necessarily recap, but just bring our attention to where we are today and develop a little bit where we left off last week. I know we had a little bit of a situation with our intention last week that wasn't able to happen. So what I thought I would do is go ahead and let's get started on recapping for the first 2-3 minutes on the first two principles that we have covered, and that is the first one is all about desire. So if you have a piece of paper and a pencil, you definitely want to go ahead and grab one, okay? And the first week where we talked about it, and we spent a whole call on this principle of having the burning desire. And one of the things that you want to start looking at is anything that you want in your life must come and must start from having that desire. And I know that many times the question comes across a lot of our minds, and that is, well, I know I desire this, but can I achieve it? Or how am I going to achieve it? And we're definitely going to cover that in a minute. But one of the things that we want you to know, or one of the things that Napoleon Hill really points to, is that you wouldn't have had the desire if you didn't feel at your core that you could achieve it. So just by the simple fact that you even thought of having this desire, in your mind, in your subconscious mind, in your heart, you know that you have what it takes to achieve it. Now, do we have doubt? Absolutely. Are there, unpleasant thoughts and ideas that might cross our mind? Absolutely. But if we have that burning desire, it's because we really at our core believe we can have it. Now, here's one of the things you want to really start looking at, and that is, when we start looking at, well, what is our life going to look like 5-10 years from now? I don't know if you've ever asked yourself this. I know I always joke around with my girlfriends, and I tell them, I said, I wish I had like a crystal ball, and to say, okay, this is what next year is going to look like, right? And as I'm reading Think and Grow Rich, I started laughing because one of the things that Napoleon Hill points to is that if you really want to think about or want to know what next year will look like, all you got to do is start looking at what are you currently desiring. And the portrait of what you will become lies in your current desire. So, for example, you might think like, okay, well, I desire to get fit, or I desire to be successful, whatever that means for you. I desire to be happy, whatever that is, right? Now, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get that, but you're definitely, if you start putting your attention on those things, then those will start becoming portraits of what you will become. Now, here's the thing you also want to know is that, and I love this quote, is that when you start, you start thinking about what it is that you want, but then thoughts come into your mind, and we talked about from the first week, and that is that things start to destroy your desire. Things, circumstances, people, thoughts, ideas, whatever the case may be. And I love this quote from the book that says, you destroy your desire, you destroy your mind. And those of us, and I'll include myself because I know we all go there sometimes, when we don't have a desire, we don't have the passion, and we don't have the drive. So if you even want to know, well, is this really something that I desire? Just look at your actions, look at your passion. And, so many times we say that we want something, but we really have to be realistic. Are we putting the passion? Are we putting the drive behind our desire? So that was really week 1. And then we concluded the call with the challenge of we were going to take on, having this burning desire is really, really focusing and putting your energy on it by doing 6 steps. Number 1, and it's like a little formula from Napoleon Hill. Number 1 is to define the exact amount of money that you desire or the specific goal that you want to obtain. Whether it's like, I want to make $10,000 a month, or it's like I want to, my desire is to get to the next level by extravaganza. Like, my desire is to get Team by extravaganza, to get to Meal Team by extravaganza, whatever that is. We're just going to put money just for like simplicity reasons, but know that whatever you desire, whether it's physical, whatever it is, okay? So number 1, define the exact amount, the specific goal you want. Number 2, what you will do to obtain it. In other words, what service, what service, what product are you going to, give to in obtaining of this goal? Or in other words, like if you want to say, I'm going to, bring down my body fat to 5% or whatever it is, right, 5% less. Well, then what will you do to obtain that goal, okay? Number 3, have a specific date. Number 4, create a definite plan. And then number 5, we talked about creating these 4 things into a statement. And a statement that included the specific goal, what you will do to obtain it, the specific date, and the plan you will do to your definite plan that you will take in action in. And the sixth step, and that is to read it out loud every morning and every night. And we went through this, and we accepted the challenge, every single one of us on the call, right, that we were going to do this for the rest of the month. So I would like, at the end of the call, I'm going to want to hear how that is going. So, you want to start looking at, when you do this and when you really sit down and you really close your eyes and you say it out loud every morning and every night, there is something magical that happens. There's actual scientific proof. If you go onto my website, Entrepreneur Intelligence, I uploaded the video, the YouTube video from Joe Dispenza, a scientist that's been able to prove how the brain, generates chemical, literally changes its chemistry when you're in this state of desire, okay? Or whenever you're in a state that you're focusing on something and you do it repetitively. So something happens where the universe will literally manifest your desire. So we started taking on this challenge about doing this for the next 90 days, this month of October. Then last week, we covered the second principle of Think and Grow Rich, and that is faith. Now, we didn't really talk a lot about this, so let's go ahead and cover this, okay? And here's the thing. You would have not had the desire of whatever it is in the first step, your desire. You wouldn't have had it had you not had faith that you could obtain it. Now, of course, does faith come in and out? Absolutely. Do we have doubt once in a while? Absolutely. But here's the thing that you want to know. If sometimes if you find faith difficult, or if there's like a little bit of a challenge with your faith, with your desire, you want to have faith in this. And that is this book, Think and Grow Rich. These 13 principles have been around forever. So have faith that if you do these 13 steps, these 13 principles, have faith that it will manifest. Have faith in these principles, okay? So what you want to know is that faith is really nothing more than a state of mind, okay? That you can generate faith through affirmation, through auto-suggestions, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Actually, let's go ahead and write that down. That's step number 3 is auto-suggestions. But let's continue talking about here about faith, and that is you can literally generate it. You can generate it by having the affirmations every day and every morning and every night, by doing the auto-suggestions. In other words, you can literally generate it by repeating something, like repeating specific instructions to your mind, to your subconscious mind to be exact, okay, where it's kind of like you plant a seed, okay? Now, here's the thing. For those of you who went to the extravaganza in Chicago, to remember the personal development section on Sunday morning, I thought this was brilliant. And this is all this principle of how your thoughts and your ideas literally will create and will manifest into reality. So here's one of the things you've got to know, okay? And I'm not saying every single thought and every single idea, but what you do want to know is that when you do have a thought or an idea, it's like planting a seed. You know, like let's say if you have some soil and you grab a couple of seeds and, you know, you're like, oh, tomatoes. I have seeds for tomatoes. And you put the seed of tomato in the ground, right? And you kind of forget about it. But, you know, the water, you know, you're kind of watering it. You're watering that section, and you forget that that's what you planted because it kind of becomes like second nature. And there you are watering it. And all of a sudden you go, you know what? Never mind. I think I want to now plant cucumbers, right? But the thing is, you had been watering that seed for like months, okay? And all of a sudden you start planting cucumbers. And, yes, cucumbers come out, but then all of a sudden you see this plant, and you're like, what is that? And then you're like, tomatoes? I didn't want tomatoes. But you forget that 4 months ago, or like for 4 months straight, you were focusing on tomatoes. So it doesn't mean that you focus on something right now and it happens tomorrow. But what you do need to know is that it does happen, which is why it was so funny. I went to lunch with somebody the other day, and I was cracking up. Of course, I didn't say anything because I've been working on keeping my comments to myself. And this person, I was telling him about this book, and I was like, you know, this is an amazing book. You really should read it. And he's like, oh, my God, you know what? I'm sick of that stuff. I don't believe in that stuff. You know, this whole, like, believe it and close your eyes and say it and manifest it. And he was saying it in this tone of voice, like totally sarcastic. He's like, you know, and like, oh, yeah, if you close your eyes, if you believe it, you can achieve it, and all these crazy phrases. And he's like, you know, I've been asking for X, Y, Z, and I haven't had it, so I don't believe in that. And if you think about what this person said, let's call this person Beth, okay? If you think about what Beth said, and that is, she literally is undoing what supposedly she says that she's doing. So here she is thinking, I want cucumbers, right? Like, I want this, I want that. But really what she's planting is a bunch of tomatoes. In other words, she says, oh, yeah, I'm doing this. But when she's doing it, she's really not believing what she's saying. It's like, well, yeah, I want to, get in the best shape of my life, but I'm this big fatso, and I'm never going to get in shape. But you know, that's what I really desire. So I'm going to like close my eyes and think I'm going to want this, and I want to get to the next level, but I don't believe I can. I mean, I think you get the idea, right? So what ends up happening is it's like every thought you have, if you focus on it and if you give it life, it will manifest. So if things start to show up in your reality, like meaning like in your external world, just know that it all started within you. Now, that's a beautiful thing, and it's a scary thing, right? It's a beautiful thing because you're like, oh, my God, so that means I can really manifest anything I want. Absolutely. With reason, right? Like, if you focus on it and you really attain to it, well, yes, you will manifest it. But at the same time, you got to be careful because sometimes we manifest and we think of things that we don't want, like, why does this always happen to me? Or how come I can't get to the next level? Or why can't I get ripped and shaped and whatever? And you're asking the quality of your questions will determine the quality of your answers. So you've got to be careful with this whole idea of what you're thinking about because really it's like your thoughts. You know how somebody writes a biography of a human being, like somebody writes a biography of someone. Well, your thoughts are like your own biography. Now, that's a beautiful thing because you have the pen and the paper. You can literally write down exactly how you want your biography to come out. And you got to understand that you also have to put some time and energy and action into it. But it all starts with a desire, and it all starts with number 2, faith. Now, there's a formula for faith, and I don't have a lot of time to cover it, so I'm just going to go through it really quick. But what I want to do is I'm going to take some time and make a YouTube video of this formula. You guys really need to get the book, really need to get the Audible. I mean, this has got to be a book that everybody needs to have on their bookshelf. You know, when Jim Rohn was alive, he always would give us the books that he always recommended, and this was probably, if not the first, it was the top 3 books, and that's, from the man himself. So Think and Grow Rich is something we all need to have on our bookshelf. But anyhow, number 2, when it comes to faith, there's this formula, okay? And again, I'm going to put this a little video up, but I'm going to just give you a little idea of it. So I'm going to start reading a couple of my notes, okay? So that is number 1. You've got to start telling yourself, I know I am capable of obtaining it. That's number 1, is to start telling yourself, I know I am capable of obtaining it. And for that, you've got to start demanding of yourself to be persistent okay, and to have continuous action, and to give your word to act on that persistently. Like Mark Hughes used to say, you got to be consistent, and you got to be consistent about even being consistent. So that's number one, capable of obtaining it and demand of yourself persistence and continuous action. Number two, know that your thoughts reproduce, okay, with time, reproduce in the external world. Know that whatever you're thinking about, okay, so be conscious. We've been talking about this for the last year that we've been doing these calls, and that is, since last year, every single week, you guys, if there's one message I want to get across to you guys is that be conscious. Be conscious of your thoughts, okay? So number two is know that your thoughts reproduce with time to the external world. Therefore, I'm really going to recommend we start visualizing what it is that you really want to desire and what you want, who and what you want to become. That's number two. Number three, auto-suggestion, okay? Now, here's what you want to start looking at. It's just to know, I know that whatever my dominant thoughts are will manifest in the world, okay? So that is your auto-suggestion, is to know, just like number two, that your thoughts really do manifest with time in the external world. Know that your auto-suggestion is your source for that. So whatever it is you want, whatever it is you focus on, start telling yourself that. Start focusing and start having those affirmations. And here's the thing, find something to interrupt your pattern, because thoughts are going to come, okay? Thoughts are going to come. Ideas are going to come that might not serve you. So personally, I always snap my left hand. I snap my fingers. I use my left hand to snap my fingers and go, erase that. I literally say that. My boyfriend cracks up when I do that. He's like, whenever I get in a bad mood or whatever, he's like, can you snap your fingers? Because literally I have so trained my brain that whenever I snap my fingers with my left hand and I kind of do this whoosh, like a windshield wiper with my left hand from the right to the left, it's like I literally delete it from my mind and get it out of my space. Now, find something that works for you. This other lady the other day shared with me that whenever she has bad thoughts or negative or disempowering thoughts of herself or others, she stops, takes a deep breath, and literally asks God for love and guidance. So you find whatever works for you, but know that these auto-suggestions are real. And it's like your brain is a muscle. Like any muscle in your body, whatever you're working on, if it's your bicep, the more muscle, the more weight you put on it, the more you focus on it, the stronger it's going to get. And like we did in the calls about a month ago, I think it was, that we did the neuroscience calls, where we started looking at how science has been able to prove that when you think of something over and over and over again, those pathways in your brain get stronger and stronger and stronger, okay? So that's number 3 formula of faith, auto-suggestion. Number 4, have a description, which we talked about in step number 1 with desire. Have a description and read it. And just tell yourself, I will not stop until I achieve it. Number 5, know that unless whatever it is that you're desiring, and we talked a lot about this in the first week, and that is, nothing will be sustained if it's not built on truth, if it's not built with integrity, if it's not built with good intention, okay? So the universe is perfect, and if you are not doing something with a good intention behind it, like if you're doing something to be like you win, they lose, know that it will not be sustainable. It is only when you approach something from the truth, from reality, from good intentions, when you're like, they're going to win, I'm going to win, everyone's, so know that if it's not like that, it will not sustain. And I know that if we were to open the lines right now, every single one of you can give me an example of one time in your life, because we're human beings, that we did something that didn't last, and if we really think about it, our intentions were not pure. Our intentions were not with integrity, okay? Doesn't make you a bad person. It's just what happens, okay? So be mindful about that. All right, so number 1 was desire. Number 2 was faith, and we have a formula on how to build faith, okay? Now, number 3, and we already talked about this, is auto-suggestion, okay? We already defined this, which is really the core concept here is putting your subconscious mind to work for you. Okay? And by you doing these auto-suggestions, you're repeating these neural pathways over and over again is the way that you are going to be able to strengthen them over and over and over again. Okay? So number 3 is auto-suggestion. Now, one of the best ways to do this on the 6 formulas that we did at the beginning with desire, when we said read your statement in the morning and at night, one of the things you want to do is you want to sit down. Ideally, you want to breathe into it, close your eyes, relax, and start when you're saying your statement out loud, close your eyes and visualize yourself. Feel it as if you already have it. As we have mentioned from the beginning of these calls, your brain does not know the difference between truth and imagination. Joe Dispenza, I've talked a lot about him on one of the videos that I think I put it up there. If not, I'll put it up there on my YouTube, or if not, I'll put it on my website, entrepreneurintelligence.com. I put a bunch of videos up there already, but I'll include this one, and that is, he literally talks about how scientists grab these guys and they literally put them in front of a piano. They put a scanner on their brain, right? Like they put those little wire things, and they started telling them, okay, we're going to have you learn the piano, and they started practicing for 2 hours every single day. And the scientists were able to see how the brain was firing off all these things inside the brain. Well, then they had another group of people, and they told them to also close their eyes. Okay, these are all piano players. Okay, close their eyes and learn to play and learn this particular song in their brain, and just put their mind, close their eyes and just play it. And it was amazing because the same parts of the brain fired off those people that just closed their eyes and imagined themselves playing it as those people that physically were playing it. Now, for those of you athletes, you know this already. You know that before you play a game, you close your eyes, you visualize how the game's going to go. Olympic athletes do this. They run the race before they do it. So when they get there, their body is only doing what their mind already has done. It's a really powerful thing. So you want to make sure that through auto-suggestion, you start not only visualizing yourself, but you start to believe and feel in your body, in your core, and the nervous system level, what it is that you desire, whether it's money, physical, relation, whatever it is that you want to manifest, okay? So that's number 3. So number 1, desire. Number 2, faith. Number 3, auto-suggestion. Number 4, and this is specialized knowledge, okay? And here's the thing. Knowledge has strength when it's organized. Knowledge has strength when it's organized, okay? And, here's another thing, with back to the whole example of the Joe Dispenza piano player. So the other thing that they did, which totally goes with this specialized knowledge, if you want your brain to start firing off the chemicals and the chemistry in your brain to be able to manifest into your reality what it is that you're desiring, you've got to know this. You must invest time and effort into what it is that you intend to give for your desired goal. So, for example, on step number 1, or the first principle, desire, one of the things on the formula was create a definite plan, right? And number 2 was, what will you do to obtain to have it? So, in other words, what will you do? What product will you do to be able to have it? So one of the things that you want to know is that in whatever it is that you say, it's like, let's say for us that we're, most of us are Herbalife distributors, you start thinking okay, so I'm going to provide excellent customer service and I'm going to train my team, whatever it is, right? I'm going to train my team. I'm going to develop a powerful team and train and be a great leader and all that stuff, right? And whatever it is your plan. Now you got to know one thing, and that's step number 4. The 4th principle is you got to have specialized knowledge. Now you got to invest time and effort to be able to have the knowledge necessary to bring that plan into fruition. So you can't just think and meditate and visualize and feel like you already have it and then do nothing about it. Okay, you must take action. So although this sounds like, oh yeah, Karla is asking me to just sit and no. Here's the thing. You've got to, yes, of course, you're going to manifest it in your mind first, but you've got to also understand that you've got to have specialized knowledge. Investing your time and your energy in that thing that you're planning to exchange for your desired goal. And now this is what's so beautiful about our company, why a lot of people have such success in this business when they do hard work along with it, is because we've got that plan for you. As long as you plug into the system, right? You go, to the weekly meetings, the monthly STSs, the quarterly leadership development weekends. As long as you're doing that and you're present, taking notes, learning, you will have this one nailed. The other thing is, we have HBN, online training. I remember when I first started my business, listen, I had no TV. First of all, I didn't have money for cable, and that was kind of a blessing in disguise, because all I did was have an internet, and I would literally every single night watch something. I literally embedded in myself, in my mind, those things that I needed in order to thrive in my business, whatever it is that I was lacking. So many times I hear people say this to me. They say, well, I want to get to the next level. And then I ask them, how do you feel about, the product? How is your product knowledge? Oh, it's okay. And then here's the one that always gets to me. And I'm like, okay, well, do you know what it takes to get to the next level? Like, you want to get to milking. What do you need to achieve it? And they have this blank look on their face. And they go, 80,000. And no, that's not the case, because nowhere in our literature does it say 80,000. It says 4,000 royalties. Because we have the roll-up, we have all these things that can happen in our marketing system, marketing plan. And they look at me like if I have three eyes or something. So one of the things you must know is that, yes, you have to have this desire. Yes, you have to have faith. Yes, you have to do that a suggestion, but you also have to invest time and energy in learning about the thing that you're wanting to manifest in your life, having specialized knowledge, know the products, know the marketing plan, or whatever business you're in, know what it is that it's going to take for you to have success in that field. You can't just wishful thinking, right? You've got to put time and effort. So that's one of the things that, is so important. And, if you can, surround yourself with people in the industry. Surround yourself with people, we'll talk about this later, about this mastermind concept. Surround yourself with people that know more than you. Pick their brains. Listen, don't be shy to raise your hand and ask the question. As I have said in these calls since the beginning of these calls last year, and that is how we do one thing, we do everything. And look, I am guilty of that as well. Sometimes I want to, I do something and I don't fold my clothes neatly, and I'm like, okay, hold on. And I go back and I do it again, because here's the thing. When your external world literally is a reflection of your internal world. So look around you, and I love this book, E-Myth, and he says, if your mind is a mess, your business is a mess, right? If your mind is, organized, you have organized thoughts, your business is organized. And I was like, oh, man, because sometimes I tell my brothers all the time, I have this committee in my head. So anyway, okay, so here's the thing. You want to make sure you're around people that are going to educate, that are going to help you educate yourself, get your right mind, get your right state of mind, get your right thinking, align yourself with what it is that you want to desire. All right, number 5, and we're going to finish with this last one, and that's imagination. And here's the thing, Mark used to always say the only limits in life is due to your own imagination and your own hard work. He must have gotten this from Napoleon Hill, right? And that is really everything starts here. Everything starts with an imagination, okay? It's like the machinery that makes things happen, okay? And it is said that a man or a woman can create anything within reason that it can imagine. The only limitations that we have are literally what we have in our what we're willing to imagine. So just to conclude this call, because we finish on time, I'm going to open the calls in a minute here, but that is start to look at where can you be more creative. So many of us have limited resources. But if you start thinking, how can I, the front lobe of your brain will fire off. One of the things we must know, we've been talking about this for a year now, and that is that your brain never rests. How many times have you ever asked yourself a question And then like 2 days later, you come up with the answer. You're like, wait, where did that come from? Well, that's because the moment you told yourself, like, whatever question you did, your brain went to work on it. So you've got to know that same thing goes here with the imagination. It all starts here. It's the machinery that gets things going. It's what the front lobe of your brain is. I mean, like, it's not in the front just by coincidence. It's your sixth chakra. I mean, I don't want to get into all that stuff, but it's right in the front for a reason. It's connected to something bigger than all of us. Okay. Call it God, call it universe, whatever it is, but we are this powerful being of energy that if you start to ask yourself the right questions, the quality of your questions will determine the quality of your answers. So if you start thinking about how can I, whatever it is that you're missing, okay, this is what, a long time ago I did a call with you guys that I said I started thinking like, how could I had a meeting at 9 o'clock, I had this call with you guys, and I started thinking that before I went to bed, I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do it? And then boom, I got creative and I made it happen. And all of us on the phone, I know, have experienced this. We've asked the question and the brain goes to work, gets really creative, the imagination part of your brain totally lights up, and maybe a day, 2 days, 3 days later, whatever it is, boom, you have the answer. You come up with the way of doing it. So, just to end on this note, and that is, if you think about when you've had, or when the universe, when mankind has had the most limited amount of resources, it's when we've had the biggest imagination, when we've gotten the most creative times in our lives. The Great Depression, those moments of hardship, people got really creative and incredible things manifested out of their imagination. So those are the 5 principles. We're going to conclude next week with the rest of them. So we're going to go super fast next week. We're not going to recap at all. We're just going to go straight from 6 to 13. So hold on to your seatbelts for that one. But before I end the recording, don't hang up. I'm going to open up the lines to see if anybody has any questions or any comments. So hang on a quick second.